to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is singer-songwriter Sarah Slaton. I had a great time with Sarah. This is the first time I've ever met her, but we sat down and the booze was flowing. We had a good time. She brought her dog Copeland in with her, but we didn't really talk about her music that much. We just kind of talked about the current situation and the state that the entertainment industry is in. And it was a great conversation. Another thing, if you're a Sarah Slaton fan, there is going to be a short clip or preview of her new single that's coming out. Be sure to listen to that at the end of the podcast. And I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I did sitting down with Sarah. Sarah Slaton, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming up. You guys just came out of a smoke plume to get over here. That fire really kicked up today, huh?
Yeah, we were having to escape from the Cameron Peak fire to get here. It was raining ash back in Fort Collins, so it was really nice to get here and finally be in the clear skies and sit here with you.
Yeah, no, thanks again for coming in. We're excited to have you. You're our very first female singer, songwriter on the show, so cheers to that.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I got to shout out to Matt Fink real quick. He hooked this up. You guys are friends and bandmates occasionally, right? Like he fills in for you sometimes, or
The story with
or fills
Matt,
in for your drummer, anyways.
Well, no, he is the drummer.
Yeah.
So shout out Matt Fink. Matt Fink and I are connected through my partner in love, Miss Sarah Joelle, who's in the band Love the Rising with him. And back in 2018, I'd been in the band Edison for about 4 years at this point, and our drummer, he was a stand-up drummer who also played mandolin and the trumpet during the show, and sometimes he would play mandolin while doing the kick drum or play trumpet while still playing the drums. It was a bit bizarre. It was amazing. But anyways, his name is Dustin, and he was going to go as a separate way from the band, and we had a final record to go promote and tour. And so Matt stepped up to the plate and came in and ended up touring with Edison on our final tour, and Sarah Joelle was on that tour as well. But yeah, Matt started touring with the band Edison, and I just clicked with him, thought he was such a cool dude. And then fast forward to now, and Matt plays at any of the live shows when I can have him, if the show calls for it. Pre-COVID, that'd be like a big festival show where, if we had like a bigger show to put on, we'll get the full band together, and Matt is the drummer for that now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Matt was my first buddy in the music business that I knew of when I first started getting into it, and I've had a career in it for 30 plus years now,
Totally.
Which is cool. So we go way back, and I was a tour manager for a band that he was in way back then, and great guy. We had a lot of good times together, and I really like what Lola Rising is doing now, and I love hearing Matt play. So I can't wait till we can get back to some live shows and get out there and see you and some other bands, like Lola.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it'd be great. As soon as we're on the other side of this, we're going to be touring a lot and playing shows in Colorado. And for now, anyone listening, I know Lola Rising has a new record, and then I have actually 2 new singles that will be coming out here in the next couple of months. So in the meantime, you can catch those live streams, which are like half as fun, I guess.
Yeah.
For the viewer and the performer, but they're happening, I guess, still.
That's awesome.
So we are doing some of those in the meantime.
And what have you been up to lately? Just recording, or are you?
Yeah, I mean,
have you been able to play any shows?
Barely. So in the past, like I would clock up to 200 shows a year. A lot of times average 100, 150 shows a year. It's pretty often, right? And so in the summer especially, I'm used to playing like 3 or 4 shows a week. And this summer of 2020 is the first time in my adult life, and probably really, in like 12 years, that I haven't been that busy in the summer playing music. We did like 1, maybe 2 shows a month, and it was only if it was outdoors and socially distanced and safe. So I've been playing a whole lot less and writing more, and we've recorded, which has been a wonderful thing. We've done a few live streams to try to offset some of those losses because we're operating at like 15% of our normal revenue, right?
Yeah, no joke, especially for musicians.
Yeah, totally.
Even road guys, like production
Everybody.
People, everybody's suffering.
Yeah, well, and that was my gig, so away from playing music before I worked in the music industry. So I worked at Red Rocks for like 9 years, backstage, schlepping around doing production stuff for 15 hours a day for bands, and all my coworkers from that world, from lighting designers to the folks doing catering backstage for the bands, for the production managers, the managers of the bands, the talent buyers. I mean, the whole tour crew. Everybody right now is in this like weird holding pattern with really like a big dot 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 on the end because we don't know.
I have so many friends. I mean, being in that industry for 30 years, all my friends are out of work right now.
Right.
I mean,
same.
Like 95% of them. And it's real rough. Actually, a buddy of mine, an acquaintance, Yeti, started roadie relief for like road guys that are touring, like front of house engineers and stuff like that. That, I mean, they don't have any income. And you can earn a pretty good living out there doing that sort of thing, especially if you're with, a big touring act. You're going to make, 6 figures probably in a year. And then to go from making 6 figures to absolutely nothing, it's got to be super rough,
It's got to be tough.
These people have mortgages and families. It's not like, I think everybody, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think everybody thinks that like that industry is a bunch of people just boozing it up, partying all the time. They don't realize how hard those people work, 20-hour days, and then you get on a tour bus and sleep for 4 hours really shitty, probably because you've drank a couple beers, pop a couple Advil, wake up in the morning and do it all over again, right? Another 20-hour day. And, it's not like they're hiring their friends. I mean, you send in resumes. It's like any other job.
And it's actually tougher than a lot of jobs because a lot of people get to go to work, and yes, you work hard. Maybe you're gone 10, 12 hours or whatever. But especially if you're out touring and working in that world, you're saying goodbye to your friends, your family. I really didn't see my friends and really my family for a majority of the last like 5 to 6 years. Not in the way that I would want. You know how many weddings I've missed, or birthday parties, or like the get-togethers, like friends things or family things. There's a sacrifice that you make, and it's not because of the paycheck, it's because of the passion. And so you've got these people out there. It comes to mind for me are those people that just day in and day out have worked so hard, but work for multiple companies. And there's a lot of people in the position now that they were a 1099 in part of their employment, but they were a W-2 in other parts of their employment. So whenever you're filing for unemployment during all of this, there's so many people that made good money, but in such different ways that the system only picks up on like half or 25% of their income. So I've seen a lot of people, like I used to work at Coachella for like 6 years, and people that I worked for that were helping produce the whole thing that are having to sell their assets, like their things they worked hard for, like their motorcycle or their collection of guitars, like selling things online and liquidating because they didn't even get the proper treatment through unemployment because it's so skewed when you're a freelancer. And so this has opened up this whole new can of worms that we're in the gig economy, but what support is there for that economy?
Exactly.
And especially for music, which is largely forgotten about. Luckily, we have NEVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association, trying to pass Save Our Stages. You go to saveourstages.com, has all the info, but they're trying to pass the Restart Act to help support independently owned venues. But pretty soon you're going to see like a ton of people that worked in music that are really, really screwed, with all of the benefits running out. So it's a tumultuous time, but the hardest working people I know are definitely in music. And the thing with music is if you don't want to do it, there's 100 people that will line up out the door to take your job because it's like just a tough industry to cut your teeth in.
It is. And there's a lot of turnover there too, so I think the people that have vetted and made a career out of that, my hat goes off to them because it is not easy, you know what I mean? Like that day in, day out lifestyle and missing, especially if you have kids or a family. I was fortunate enough that back when I was touring the world, I didn't have kids or, I had immediate family and I missed out on a lot still. But to have, like a family and be out on the road like some of these guys that I know, it's got to be so hard, and that's actually what kind of made me quit touring the world and, go more on the corporate side of stuff back in the day. But yeah, I'm super fortunate because I'm set up with this and I, I kind of not left that industry behind. I still dibble dabble in it quite a bit, but yeah, it's rough for a lot of the people that I know that are super close. And if you can support any of these organizations, especially Roadie Relief, I think is a great one because it's founded by those people. And Jeremy, can you look that up if it's roadierelief.com or roadierelief.org? We want to get those guys some help, and they're doing some cool stuff too. Like as a roadie, you collect all kinds of different shit, right? Like you get T-shirts and drumsticks and guitar picks and posters and all this stuff, and from some pretty cool events, you know. So a lot of those guys are putting that sort of stuff up for auction to help support that community. So I think that they're getting ready to have an auction.
I might have some stuff for them.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, we'll get in touch. I'm trying to get somebody from Yeti's organization to come in and sit down and talk to us so we can do a whole episode on it, and hopefully that'll happen before the auction. So
it's not this one, is it? Sweet Relief?
No, it's called Roadie Relief. I know that they have an Instagram page, and I think that their website just went live like last week. So yeah, man, check it out and circle back to me. Just butt in. So
yeah, and while you're there, definitely check out the SaveOurStages.com as well to support independently owned music venues. And if you're in Colorado, I was going to try to find the website. But basically, Sound Diplomacy, I had them on a panel I was moderating recently. And this guy, Shane Shapiro, was reminding us all that quite a bit of money from the CARES Act has to be spent by the end of the year. And Denver County itself has $2 million to give out to people that are running artistic and creative endeavors, something like a musician, a music venue, anyone running a podcast. There are people that can apply for this right now, but the deadline is October 20-something. But I know that money is out there right now, and they just opened up the applications on October 5th. So I do know that is something that recently just came about that's going out here in Denver.
Oh, that's great information. That's a lot of money to shell out, too. I mean, yeah, that's really great. I'm glad that they're doing something like that.
I believe that you can just go to Sound Diplomacy's website. It's called Cares for Music.
Okay.
But if you just go to Sound Diplomacy's website, you can find that sounddiplomacy.com. But they have all the information on the local grants that have to be given out before the end of the year. So
awesome. No, that's really good. And there's a ton of people out there that could use it right now, for sure. Especially because I'm still involved in that industry a little bit, and kind of everything that I'm hearing, nobody's planning shit until 2021. You know, it's
at least, and on the large scale, from what I've heard from some old coworkers,
except for Florida, they're like, "Fuck it,
yeah,
let's
except
go."
For Florida.
Yeah.
But out here with event insurance, you're not going to have 10,000 people at Red Rocks for quite some time until we're for sure that you can put 10,000 people together, and as the promoter, not be liable for too much damage.
Exactly.
So. But it's a time, I think, it's an opportunity. So let's talk about silver lining. It's a lot of doom and gloom, and there are places to donate and give money. But a silver lining of this is that artists that are standing out right now are the people that are really connecting with their community, I think, online. And I think that there are a lot of people right now that are making the most of this time. And I think it's the people that are getting involved with the bigger picture, right? Because we can all have a song coming out, but like, what's the whole scene? In the whole industry, like what do they need and how can I help support that? So I feel like right now is a time for, I'm seeing a lot more people kind of step up. And
100%. And the creativity that's come out during this, like I have friends of mine that are hardcore road guys, like that's all they do is lighting, but now they're making music and they're making some awesome stuff. Like it's blown me away, really. So the creativity that's coming out in people, I think that's another silver lining, you know? So 100%. I think it's not all doom and gloom, like you said. It's a great way to put it.
No, it's not. I mean, have you heard of the Armory?
Yes.
In Denver?
Yep.
So they took like the old Colorado militia building and now they've flipped it into a space for artists, and there's all these guys that are grounded from tours and like used to do like the Rose Bowl and like big Red Rocks productions, and now they're using all these high-tech things like digital mapping and multicam shoots, but amplifying the local scene right now, you know, and taking time to, I think, bring assets to the community that are normally not that accessible.
Sure.
So I feel like it's really grounding people to where people are thinking more locally, in a way.
Yeah, no, and I think I think the world is going to turn into more of a local place because people's comfort level is not going to be the same to go travel. Like mine isn't, and I used to travel all the time. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to get back out there, but I definitely, there's an uneasy feeling, like if I have to go get on a plane, or for example, last weekend me and Jeremy took off to the Western Slope and stayed in a hotel, and there was a moment there where I hadn't been in a hotel in 8 months, and I used to live over half the year in a hotel, and there was just this weird moment where I was like, shit, man, man, is this place clean? Did they clean the sheets right? Or, just that hypochondriac kind of came out in me for a minute. And I'm not even a person to be like that,
Do you see yourself being able to let go and like kind of shake that off at the end of this, or do you feel like for you as a person that's something that might stick through? Like, do you feel like that heightened awareness is there to stay?
I think that's going to stay with everybody. I think it's going to be in the back of their mind because they've gone through this. It's like, imagine if you were in the World Trade Center when 9/11 happened, right? How horrible would that be? I mean, you can't compare the two. But if you're affected firsthand, it's a human body's and brain's natural reactions to, fight or flight, basically, right? And me, I've always been able, like, I guess I've gone through some childhood turmoil and stuff like that. And so I feel like I have pretty thick skin when it comes to that. I can get back on the horse pretty easy. And I also, being a road guy, you kind of have to have thick skin dealing with those characters and personalities and that schedule and that lifestyle is pretty fast and furious. But yeah, I think still, even then, is in the back of my mind, there's no doubt in my mind that I'll get back on the horse and like travel with my family. What I'm most concerned about is affecting other people. Like, I'm not scared of getting COVID, but I have grandparents that are in their 80s and they live super close, and I'm trying to spend as much time with them as I can before the end of their time. And this concerns me, like, so I've been playing it safe on that side. Like, I used to go to jiu-jitsu twice a week, sometimes 3-4 times a week, and I'll be honest, I haven't gone back just because I'm trying to help them out, and I just hope it doesn't affect anybody that's around me, So I've kind of put the brakes on a lot of stuff that I used to normally do, which I think everybody has. But yeah, no, I think America in general has got to get back on the horse. I mean, there's things that are happening right now that are way worse than COVID, I think. I mean, I know several people, and I've had a family member firsthand that this has gotten the better of them, and we won't get into details, and I don't mean to make this doom and gloom. I want to talk about you and your music career, but we kind of went down this path.
No, you're fine. I mean,
I think it's good for people
that won't speak over all of this stuff, Like, you have people that share blood and grew up together that over politics or pandemic, whatever it is, like, it's drawing lines. Like, not, I don't want to make a poor analogy, but like, we're talking Civil War style, brother against brother, in like what I've seen, and like, it's dividing people and families, and it's almost like you have to choose. There, people are choosing different sides, and it's more polarized than ever. So like, yeah, it doesn't have to be about just like the happy, because right now it's like time for real shit and real talk. And like, what's the point if you're not really talking about, like, it's affected my family personally. It sounds like it's affected yours, but it's not easy. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, how do we find common ground past this? Because we're not going to be the same. It's like the post 9/11 world, right? Like, Patriot Act on, Big Brother's watching, and everyone was really polarized on their reactions to 9/11. But 9/11 was this massive change in our culture. But I think that right now we're in the middle of the shift, so we don't even recognize what a big shift we're in. And like, I think we'll be nostalgic for the era pre-COVID, like people are nostalgic for the 60s, right?
Right.
I think about it, I'm like, is this like the 8mm shot film in my highlight reel of my life? Like, was it pre-2020? Was like my good America when I'm in my 50s and I'm like talking about my life experience? Was it like, well, before COVID, the world was great, and I don't know what it looks like.
All those times you ditched your friends not to go to the bar with them.
I'm
and
so
stuff.
mad about. There's so many things. Yeah, no, I'm gonna stay and watch Netflix. No, we could have all been group hugging and like hanging out and like getting like late night Jimmy Johns and like not feeling weird about like huddling together. Yeah, you wonder, and always having to be mindful of everyone else's feelings on it, because moving forward, you always have to be sure that whomever you want to hug wants the hug. Right? It's almost like as a musician, at my shows, people would line up at the merch table to meet me after shows, and I'd have this moment to like one-on-one connect with people and hug them and look them in the eyes, and they would talk about why the song affected them, and you could have these real moments that really solidify the relationship of like why I need them and they need me, and we need the music. And what does that look like after this? Like, what is a hug at the merch table? Like, I can't. I feel like as an artist, I have to wait for them to want that because I can't just do what I used to do, which was like, I'm Sarah Slaton and I love hugs, so go
Right.
hug me. Like that feels wrong now, like I'm encroaching.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a fine line, even with just the guests that we have coming in here. Sometimes I don't know, like, should I wear a mask? Should I not? Are we cool? Like, obviously we're doing whatever we can to be the safest that we can and stick to those state mandates. But I mean, it's definitely, there's this uneasy tension. The other thing is I'm big on facial expressions and body language and that sort of thing. And that's why I only do this podcast in person. Like I've had so many people ask to do it remote, and I've just flat out said, no, we'll reschedule for another time when the world gets back to normal, or we can try to do it in person.
Well, you have a whole vibe here. This is like the coolest, just for y'all listening, this podcast studio is like next level. They've got like all the vibes set right to where you just want to like kick back and tell you everything.
Thank you.
But it's so thoughtful. And
I think it's the whiskey.
Well, no, you can tell you worked in music. Like, so I used to stage dressing rooms for Prince and Adele and Justin Bieber and all these big people, and I would like make sure that their environment was cush, and that was my job for a living. And I feel like you are just setting that level here today, and everyone else with a podcast, beware, because they've really set the bar high. I'm just gonna tell you that.
Thanks, appreciate it. So I need some help with something though, real quick, because I've had a crazy career in music. I've been a tour manager, I've been a stage manager, I've been a carpenter, I've been a hydraulic technician, I've been a lighting guy, a rigger. I mean, like, just about any job you could have in the touring industry, I've had. But I've never had to perform.
Yeah.
And the podcast is a borderline performing, right? And I know, like, just from being a tour manager and stuff, and what we had on our riders, like having the throat coat tea and that sort of stuff. But I noticed last weekend we went down and we stayed on the western slope, and we went into somebody's home and they fed us dinner. And I'm careful about what I eat before the podcast so it doesn't affect my voice. And you'll hear me clearing my throat all the time. But prior to that, there's this really nice woman that served us this incredible bowl of ice cream. I don't even know. Jeremy, do you remember what flavor that was? Not to get into details.
Black raspberry chocolate chip.
Oh my God.
Put it in my mouth.
Yeah. It was like it reminded me of going to my grandmother's house, it was like the best. It was a home cooked meal. Yeah. It was awesome. That's why I'm bringing it up. But anyways, that podcast, I sounded like shit. And that was the last one. This is the one that just came out. And, God, I think it was from eating the ice cream. So I need to get your, like, throat coat, those sort of tricks. Can you give me any tips on that?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
So, yeah, like I said, I used to play a bunch of shows per week. And on my busiest tour, when my band was signed to a record label back in like 2016, they had us on this massive tour with like a radio promoter and like a publicist, and we were doing like overnight drives and radio every day and like local TV like hits every day, plus shows and like all these extra things. Not to mention running all your social channels, which took a lot of talking each day to like Snap and Instagram and crap. The trick I learned, because sleep doesn't happen, right? And even if it does, and you're feeling a little scratchy, so taking the multivitamin every day is a really good thing.
I'm big on those.
Right? But the thing that I did, besides a ton of water, was right before I go on, no matter what shape I was in, whether it was good, bad, ugly, it was a shot of whiskey with Tabasco in it.
Really?
And you just take that, like, ignore the taste, just take it. And then let it just glide down, and then follow it with a little bit of honey, and then a little bit more whiskey. It's like this honey Tabasco whiskey mix. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You can fly by like butter for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And that was just like, that's my like cheat, because in the world I lived in, you were doing so much that I had to find the cheat. But the big one for me was like water for sure, and vitamins. And I forget what it was that they had me take for a while. It was Pete Yorn took it, and my head of my label was all like, Pete Yorn takes this. You gotta take this. I feel like I was gonna say milk thistle.
Okay. No, that sounds right.
but I'm pretty sure that that's what it was, and oregano.
Okay.
It was like an oregano pill I would take for a little bit there, and milk thistle, and it was
Really?
like that. But really, the whiskey and Tabasco I think is what did it, because I'd be like on night 5 of a show.
Yeah,
and
that's
about to
my
go on,
go-to.
and
If
it
I
was
feel a
food.
cold coming on, it's obviously Pack Emergency Wellness Formula. I'm a big fan
always,
of,
yeah.
right? And but for me, it's the hot toddy, the honey,
Mhm.
Crown Royal, and some lemon and hot water. Whew,
Mhm.
that'll clear it right up.
Yeah, and they've got
Sinuses too.
they've got these like little things that like the people that make NyQuil or whatever make. It's like for your face, and you just put your face in it. It's like a little mister vapor thing for your
Okay.
face. My partner had that on tour, and you could just plug it in the green room or dressing room at the show, and just put your nose inside this little capsule that would just fill it with steam and kind of clear everything
Nice.
out. So yeah, that was it. But the Tabasco and whiskey is.
It wasn't the volcano though, right? Like, do you remember those? Like, it was.
Talk about the science
It was
project?
no. It was an incinerator, and we used to have them on the back of the tour bus. But
Oh.
it was this thing, and it looked like a freaking food processor, and it was as heavy as one.
Mhm.
But it was called the Volcano, and you would get these turkey basting bags, right? And it would vaporize weed before they made like all these little like vaporizer pens and all the stuff that they have now. And I'm kind of out of the game now on all that, but this thing was huge, and we would fill up these giant like turkey basting bags that had like a plunger on the end of it, and you would just get your weed out of that. But
I've seen that done.
it was super cool.
There was like a documentary, I forget his name, like a famous person that was high for 30 days and then not high for 30 days. And he like filmed the documentary of him high for 30 and not high for 30. But he used that method.
Okay. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of methods to hide weed on tour buses.
Right.
There's some crafty things out there.
It didn't make the smell any worse or better, but it was just it was cleaner than smoke, I guess, going down the road.
Do you want to hear my raunchiest tour bus story?
Yes.
All right. So,
I'm all about that. Like I'm an old road dog, and we're gonna have a bunch of roadies on the show.
Wait,
So even though it's called the Mountainside, there's gonna be a road influence, and we're gonna have some fucking characters on here. So this is great.
I like this. Let's swap. Let's
Yeah.
swap. Let's swap a couple of them.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my idea. I'll tell you one. You tell me one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So here's my funniest tour bus story that I have. So I'm working at Red Rocks. I think it's like 2014, 2015. I don't know.
I'm gonna grab this real quick.
Do you, baby? So I'm working at Red Rocks, and it's 3 nights of Kenny Chesney.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so I'm there working all 3 days. It's like almost 20-hour shifts each day. So I'm clocking like 60 hours in like 3 days, crushing it. And it was night number 2. I come back to work, right? And it's August, which we're talking about conservation and nature lovers out there.
Yeah.
Do you know what animal breeds in August? The rattlesnake. It's when it like hatches its baby.
Oh really? Cool.
Rattlesnake.
Way to tie it back to nature
It
and
like births its
mountain life.
Thank you. It births its babies in August, right? So I'm on night 2 of Kenny Chesney. It's August, and it's sold out. So you got like 10,000 people at Red Rocks.
And anybody that hasn't been to Red Rocks is a rattlesnake mecca. I mean,
I've
right
seen
there
so many.
along the hogback, they just like
Mhm.
they bunch up right there before they can go any higher in elevation to the mountains. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've got like backstage, like you'll be backstage at Red Rocks, and like you'll have like famous person X, Y, or Z like standing out back by like because the buses have to go down from backstage, right? Like so if you're the artist, you're used to like walking out of backstage in your dressing room and accessing the tour bus right there. That's not possible at Red Rocks. Like it's a van drive, like a 15-passenger van has to take you down this windy hill to your tour bus. So when the artist is upstairs, they're stuck for the night usually. But the rest of the tour buses are down right by the trailheads, right by where all these rattlesnakes like to hang. So I'm on night 2 of Kenny Chesney, and all of a sudden the tour manager is like calling me to the office, and I'm like, oh, that's not a good thing, because it's like the typical like call I'm used to getting, and it was urgent. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, we need to find like a snake wrangler. Like, I get a lot of weird calls, but cool. Why do we need a snake wrangler? And they're like, yeah, so the tour bus driver just let us know that this rain's real bad tonight, and it's hot, obviously, but now it's cold with the rain, and all these baby snakes, apparently all these rattlesnakes have made their way into the tour bus. They went into the bay of the bus.
In the tour bus.
By the generator's on, right?
Oh,
so the Jenny's all warm. And then the bays of the bus and stuff. Like the tour bus is warm basically. Like the rattlesnakes, it's
Feel bad for the guy that has to change the oil in the generator.
right. So this freezing cold rain is coming down, and all these snakes go to the buses for safe harbor. So we had to get a snake wrangler out to Red Rocks to go through the tour buses to freaking pick out the baby rattlesnakes, which have like the most lethal venom, I believe.
Yeah.
And find the snakes in the bus. And the crew that night did not, like, this is night 2, the second night. This is the third night when they're leaving, right? By the third night, they have the wrangler come back and double check the buses. But that night, when they had to get on to do the overnight drive to Salt Lake, everyone's outside the bus, like,
We can't do it.
we don't. Are you sure you got them all?
See, and I would be the sick asshole that would be buying rubber snakes, like whatever the trading post down there or whatever would be sold out of rubber snakes because they would be in everybody's bunks.
That's what I was saying, and like I was sitting there, I'm like, you guys, should we write like a screenplay on the spot and pitch it? Because I think Snakes on a Plane has a fantastic sequel.
Snakes on a tour bus.
Snakes on a bus.
Yeah.
Get a Chesney. Baby rattlesnake with your breakfast.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but that's my best tour bus story. Is I just remember like the look on their faces and the having to find a snake wrangler, and then being like, yeah, there are baby rattlesnakes on your bus, but yeah, go on and just hop back on it. Well, you'll be fine.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, there was a few venues that we went to outdoor, specifically in Pennsylvania, and I think it was Hershey Amphitheater, not the venue Hershey, but Hershey Amphitheater. And they have, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that when I went there, they had a snake wrangler, like going underneath the stage because guys had to run these big, giant feeder cables underneath the stage. And for anybody that doesn't work in rock and roll, it's just the biggest, heaviest copper cable you will ever carry, especially when they're tied together in 5 different wires. But
and when you run them backwards.
Oh yeah, that's always fun. Peter to the heater, boys. But anyways, I think that they had a full-time guy on there, and literally, like, you would see him walk around with a pillowcase.
Yep.
And it would just be swimming with snakes that he had picked up, which was kind of crazy. And the snakes there are way different. They're a lot larger. Like, they're I think they're Western Diamondbacks, or I don't know what they are. There's some sort of...
Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. I forgot Jeremy's from there.
A Western Diamondback or a Copperhead.
Yeah. Do you know that name of that venue?
Thank you, Jeremy.
The amphitheater that's right there outside of Hershey?
I don't. Everything's just... I'm going to Hershey.
Okay. Right.
Encompasses everything that Central Pennsylvania has to offer.
Yeah. But back to the tour bus story, I think my fondest memories, it was just the piracy and the pranks that we had on them. And my fondest memories is when a bus would break down.
Oh, tell me.
I mean, the cruise that I was on when we were on legitimate tour buses was sometimes, like for Madonna or Rihanna or something like that, we would probably have 20 to 30 buses depending on what country you were in. And when you get into Europe and stuff, they get even crazier because they're double deckers and they have staircases. And when you have a long ride and nothing to do, you tend to get pretty throttled. Let's just put it that way. So a lot of people crashing through doors and falling through bunks and stepping into empty bunks and stuff like that. But a lot of good times had on the tour buses. But when a bus would break down, a couple of the tours that I was on, we were just straight up pirates, So it was like, okay, that bus broke down, and every bus is pulled over, 20 buses on the side of the highway, and you would just run off your bus, run to their bus, and get whatever booze that they had.
Totally. Yeah.
And run back to your bus as fast as you can, and take up as much space as you can, because there's going to be people sleeping on the fucking floor, on the couch. You're not going to have any fun. When one bus breaks down, everybody kind of has to spread out and pile into those other buses. So this is not very much fun when they break down. But
I remember working Bonnaroo for like a few years, and like the curse of Bonnaroo, and people that have worked there, I'm sure will tell you, it pours rain the morning of loadout, without fail. There's like
Yeah.
a thunderstorm with rain the morning of loadout. So I've been there multiple times where artists need to get out, but the bus is stuck in the lot and can't get through the mud.
And it's a dirt road in there. It's
Yeah.
one way. So, like, if somebody gets
Exactly.
stuck, like, there's one way in and out.
Yeah, so you're just done.
screwed. Yeah.
So like the driver's gonna stay, everyone's gonna stay, and we're gonna have to work this out. But everyone else is gonna pile on the one bus that can make it out. And like, yeah, you've been there where everyone's just like gonna schlep it for the day. Like, all right, we got a 16-hour haul. We're gonna make it through.
Right.
But as much as that's got to be hard, at least they have a bus, right? So that's
Yeah.
a good thing. We used to travel in like an RV back in the day. It was like an RV van. It had a toilet, so that was nice. But yeah, it was no.
Yeah,
tour bus.
back in the early days when I first started doing van tours for some of the punk rock bands and reggae rock bands and stuff like that, that was it's definitely a whole nother level. But at the same time, I was just telling Jeremy this, you'd be loading like a 6x12 trailer that you pulled behind the van, and you would be like cursing at the top of your lungs because it took 15 minutes to load, you're like,
Oh yeah.
so you had no idea. And then you get on some of those bigger tours and you're talking hundreds of semi trucks, just backing in and out.
Mhm.
Those drivers are amazing.
Oh, they're the shit.
Or some drivers are amazing.
So-
Depends
well,
on
yeah,
who you
that's
hire.
I mean, I was working Red Rocks one
Yeah.
time, and this tour bus driver, God bless him, took entrance 3, which they tell you many times in bold lettering, do not. If you go to Red Rocks as a tour bus driver, do not take entrance 3 because a bus cannot make it up. It will get stuck. And I had a dude freaking fall off the side of the road going that way. So, no,
Oh,
they're not
geez.
always the
Did
brightest.
the bus roll, or was it?
It went kind of sideways and was just
Uh.
stuck. So they had to bring in a new one to get everybody out.
That was always my fear because I lived in one for fucking years. Those are planes, and hotels occasionally, but man, to be in an accident one, knock on wood, I never was, and well, that's not true. We had some close calls, but it was never like a full-on rollover. We had a guy that tried to commit suicide in front of our bus.
Oh, wow.
When we were leaving New York City one time. Like, he ran out in front of the bus, and the bus driver was one of the best bus drivers I ever had. Slammed on the brakes, and everybody, just piled up in their bunks, and I was actually in the back lounge and went like flying off the couch that I was sitting on. And it was pretty crazy, when those things have to go to a squealing stop. I mean, there's a certain way that you sleep in them. You always sleep with your feet facing the front of the bus, because if you get an impact or something, it won't break your neck. So,
Exactly.
and it's like crawling into a coffin basically when you get in those bunks. It's they're not big, but man, did I sleep good in those, because
Yeah.
you're so tired, and the vibration going down the road. That was awesome. I do kind of miss sleeping in the bunk.
Maybe you'll get back to it at some point.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what touring looks like for me after this. I think it's more mindful. And
Yeah, let's
you
get
don't
into
go
your
out-
music a little bit.
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it. No, you don't go. I mean, for me, it's like you don't go out for like, my crazy ass used to go out for like 4 months at a time, and then come home for a week and go back out, and it was like, how far were we like really moving the ball doing that, or how much were we just like touring to tour? I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be more mindful for everyone moving
Right.
forward, probably.
Well, and the hard part about that too is, just in general, the music industry, right? You really can't make money off of album sales anymore unless you have like a diehard avid fan that just wants that memorabilia, right?
Yeah.
So, and music is readily available online for free. So really where artists were making their money was touring and live shows, live performances, right?
Completely.
Yeah, and then the venue takes a cut of that, and then if the venue can't be at capacity, it takes a lot of money to go down the road.
I
Like
recently,
fuel,
Yeah, I mean,
hotels,
well,
just food.
you
everything.
might have a hybrid in the future where it's live streams and venue performances. I'm
Sure.
not sure. I had recently moderated a panel with Kevin Lyman,
Uh-huh.
who founded the Warped Tour, on the panel, and I was asking him about the future landscape of music. It was really nice to hear from him because he's like in the know and having those conversations with the people that are really making decisions. And he was basically saying that venues are going to adapt to where now, like let's say 2021, you can have the venue at like 60% capacity. So if you're 1,000 cap, I can put 600 people in the venue, and let's say that's a $35 ticket, and you're going to see like local natives, right? But then the venue is now going to have multicam 4K cameras set up around the stage and maybe one on the actual drum kit. And there's another tier of tickets now that was never there before. That was every stop of the band's tour. Most of those venues will have a live stream ticket option to stream the show. A, because it's a revenue source that's more, adaptable now. But B, because some people after COVID won't want to go, but want to see the show.
Sure.
And super fans might want to see every show on the tour. So his take, which I think Lyman's take is pretty big, was basically like the new model is at whatever capacity, all the way to full capacity, every show will also have a live stream ticket component, which is an extra revenue source for someone. And if you look at artists,
Sure, and I mean, you could do that in the millions, right? Like, look at the Grateful
100%.
Dead.
Exactly.
Just set your teepee up in the yard, run the Wi-Fi spreader to wherever your teepee's at, right?
Mhm.
I suggested this to a friend of mine like 5 years ago because the cameras were so good. And I was like, there must be a reason because people are way smarter than me. Why has this not been implemented? And then everything could have, when this pandemic happened, we would have had
Is in place.
another thing to turn to.
Mhm.
We would have had an infrastructure there, and it all would have been taken care of.
Well, all these big companies now, because I still dibble dabble in that world, are moving that way. Just so you know, they're creating their own platforms with their own cloud-based servers, and the best part about it is,
It just seemed like this would have been something that we would have been doing to squeeze some more revenue out of it.
I mean, it could have been the Instagram of a few years ago, but
Sure.
it just wasn't adopted. But I think now there's like stageit.com. Like I met so this pop boy band in the 90s, Evan and Jaron. They had Crazy for This Girl. Remember
Okay.
that song?
nope.
It was huge. It was like a top 10 hit. But Evan, one of the twin brothers from that pop band, started stageit.com, which was way before its time and was at South by Southwest hustling, trying to convince people to do live streams for money back in 2011. And when the pandemic hit, all these articles came out about Stageit. And since then, 7 months, 8 months later, there's all these new platforms or existing platforms that are doing it. But there's not, I don't think there's really like that big of a market for the live stream.
And you kind of started one here in Colorado specifically, right? Like you did a music singer-songwriter showcase, or I'm going to let you explain it.
Yeah, no, so like I was following coronavirus and stuff, and so about a week or two before the shutdown really happened, I had my finger on the pulse of it's gonna get bad. And so right when everything started getting canceled, by March 17th is when Colorado, I think, went on full lockdown. And like 4 days later, I had my first live stream concert. So what I did is I made a Facebook page that would act as an online music venue, and I ended up booking 8 bands per week for 12 weeks. So I had 92 bands that performed, and it just felt like the right time for it. And
That was
it
awesome.
like-
I saw some of those, and I had a
Thank
great
you.
time, and it was at the height of the lockdown. Like you were way ahead of the curve. So
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a lot of them came out kind of after we started, and we just were one of the first. We got all these people to sponsor it, so I got free beer for the artists. So I would, my partner and I would physically drive or have people come to our house to pick up the beer, which was a different local brewery every week. And then we also had like Raising Cane's Chicken gave them free meals. The artists got the donations directly to their Cash App or Venmo account, so the money went straight to them that day. And we did 8 bands a week. We ended up having like over 100,000 minutes viewed, reached almost 250,000 people, 250,000 people, all over the country, mostly Colorado. But it was definitely a thing that it's a timestamp now where I ran it for like 4 or 5 months.
and are you still doing that, or?
No, we paused it in June because the streaming numbers went down. I also think that we were booking so many bands that almost you had to sacrifice quality for quantity, because I was trying to make sure it was a fantastic show every week and it's really the best of this or that, and not to discount artists or anything, but I was having a hard time making the show last at its staying power and have that quality. So I felt like it was a moment in time. It was just a thing that happened. And if we get back to the level where bands aren't playing, a lot of people are playing now at limited
Yeah,
capacity.
and there's a lot of things that have come back to distract people.
Yeah.
Like when you were doing it, there was absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It was like you could watch Fox News or CNN or your local news station, but even TV wasn't happening, right? So what you put on was amazing, and
Thank you.
my hat goes off to you to step up to the plate and do that. But yeah, now we have NHL's back, NFL, like all these sort of sports things are coming back. And
Yeah, for the moment, it felt like there was like this big chunk of life missing, and I felt like where I felt personally was like helpless, confused, um, needing some type of positive reinforcement, and the only thing I knew to do was to channel that feeling into contacting my friends to see if they would want to play a show, and just making a Facebook page, and now I think we have like 4,000 followers.
That's awesome.
Which is much more than my music page, uh, my new music page. But it was people got behind it so fast. So yeah, we'll bring it back maybe to some capacity. But I felt like it kind of had its moment, and that's
Sure.
what I did it for. I didn't do it for like building a whole thing. It was more to like serve the moment, what I think people needed. I don't think they needed it.
It'd be
as much
cool
though.
if you could add a venue element to that
Mhm.
too, you know, like if you could get some of these venues to sign on. And I urge, if there's anybody that owns a small venue here or something, or a bar or something like that, to contact you and get that set up, because I think it would make it that much better, you know.
No, I think that'd be great. Like I
Yeah.
think it'd be a nice thing to do. Like if we do like a pop-up day, it could be like something that features different venues or this or that. But until we can bring the production value up, because I think so the audience was very happy with an iPhone recording in March. The audience was very happy with whatever you could do.
It's amazing what you can do on a freaking iPhone.
But now people do expect more. Like look at Travis Scott and Fortnite. You know, they made like 27 million doing an immersive like VR live stream where like the artist is turned into a cartoon. Like, and now they're building a Fortnite arena in LA to do this forever, to where artists come in and are filmed with those effects and cameras, and they're put out virtually for a virtual concert on Fortnite. Like that is a thing now. So until we can adapt to level up, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. I'm figuring it out because right now we're in this really rapid state of change, right?
Yeah.
It's where the audience expects certain things, and you also, as the host of a show, you might have 3 great performances, and then someone comes on and the audio's not through or the Wi-Fi doesn't work. So you have to really trust your artist to like put on a good show for you because it's your event, but everyone has their own thing to put on every hour. So that was a little bit like you had days where we were really stressing out and pulling our hair out because so and so didn't go live at the right time or at the right angle, or you can't
That's just
actually
being-
hear them.
That's my life as a tour manager. That's why I quit and went straight to the production side. I was like, "Fuck this! I'm not a babysitter anymore. I'm going into production." So, but yeah, no, it is. I hope that we get it back. I hope we get back to normal. I hope that we can go to clubs and bars and stuff to full capacity, and I hope that we can to get back on the horse with the live events. And the people that work in live events are some of my best friends and some of the coolest people to be around. And you kind of have to be in that industry, whether you're in a band or not, because you spend so much time with these people. You know, it's got that firefighter camaraderie, that military camaraderie, but we can say whatever we want.
Have you guys started missing even some of the shitty people?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Jeremy.
I have a bunch of people that I'm like just bitch about constantly, and now I'm like, oh, it'd be good to see that dude.
I mean, my goal is like I think about some of the artists like being on the production side that work for like X, Y, or Z famous person that comes to town. Like I hope that they come out of this more grounded and grateful to be out and touring. I know I will be, and according to Goldman Sachs and their like music outlook report, they think that we'll see almost a 200% increase in demand the first year that it's super open again.
I can't wait to hear some of the music that's going to come out of recording studios, because artists actually have the time
and something to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a collective soul of. I think humans, whether we know it or not, have a collective emotion with each other, right? And I think we all right now are looking for something hopeful, but also recognizes the place and time that we're at. So I think that it's like
I can't wait for all
artists
this
with a real
politics
message.
bullshit to be over, so we can get back to like enjoying artists and comedy and whatever sports.
Right.
I mean, and just focus on that, and then just tackle whatever we have politics wise, on a day-to-day basis like we do. But whenever you're in like the timing of this thing, and and the elections and all that stuff, it's weighing heavy on people. And I think that's what you were kind of touching on earlier with the division and families and brotherhood and stuff like that. And I don't think we're anywhere close to like a civil war situation, but I get what you were saying with that 100%.
I mean, there are people that have done like some forecasts that say that if we don't course correct, we could be headed for a bad situation in say 20, 30 years. But
Sure.
I think it's a time to find more common ground, right? If you're in Colorado, it's like look out the window. You've got real stuff happening outside, and whether it's from social justice movements and things that are happening in Denver. There's been a lot of movement there to climate change, where like we spoke about earlier, where I'm like leaving a smoke plume to come here and watching 250,000 acres burn outside my window. To music, where you have people that have worked for half a century to bring music and joy to people that are grounded without work and without a clear line from Congress on how they're going to be protected moving forward. I think it's a time where we're all acknowledging where we're at and changes that need to be made to make sure that we are more insulated in the future, to hopefully be able to look out for one another. I'm a big fan of Carl Sagan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you like Carl Sagan, but he has this big rant that I love. It's like a bunch of paragraphs about the pale blue dot, and it's this like photo from way out in space where Earth is in the distance, right? And you see this like beam from the sun coming through like our galaxy, and you see this like tiny, almost insignificant speck that looks like it's part of the surroundings around it, but that speck
is this some of it? Jeremy's pulling it up here.
that speck is Earth right there. That's Earth. That's where we live. That tiny fucking dot that nobody would notice if you were on a cruise ship through space.
Right.
And it's just this tiny ass little thing, but that's where we live. So I hope that on the other side of this, people can drone outside of their lives and take a camera that goes from their personal point of view and moves outside of them to the town they live in, to the country they live in, to the actual earth and world that they live in. Because when you go like a bunch of miles from here, we just look like a speck of dust. And so it's like we have this beautiful place to protect that might seem insignificant from a cosmic perspective. And can seem like
I think people get caught up in the first hand, right?
Yeah, you're so caught up in this first-hand view. Like it's like this bullshit of like we could sit here and I'm sure we could find something we don't agree upon and then argue about it for hours. But what would the point in that being? The more
I wouldn't have you on the show if that happened.
Right. Well, I think the most important point is how much more we have in common, and the fact that no matter what, we're just here. And besides the politics or the this or the that, there's a much bigger picture. And I hope that on the other side of all of this, that we can kind of look at that wide view and remember that like it's so beautiful that we exist and that we exist here. And this is the only place that we'll ever have to exist. Maybe Mars, if they want to, bring us there.
Who the fuck wants to live there?
Who wants to live on Mars, right? Like, so
I get it.
It's a reason to protect.
Probably Kanye West.
Maybe Kanye, but we got to protect, the earth around us, including Colorado.
Dude, Kanye's going to Wyoming.
Is he?
He's already there.
50,000 acre ranch.
Yeah, he's
in Wyoming.
Jeremy, not to change the subject, and Sarah, that was, I think you're right on with that. One thing that I've been watching in this whole thing, and I'm gonna go back to this, is One Strange Rock. We've got on watching it because my kid's super into documentaries right now, and especially National Geographic, and we got the whole Disney Plus thing going, and so we've been watching One Strange Rock, and that is a great kind of the same sort of like perspective that tells you kind of a little bit about science, but it kind of puts it in perspective like, okay, your everyday life, what you think and your surroundings, and like you said earlier, we're going into more of like a local mode, right? Like you're paying more attention to what's right around you or readily available. And, not so much looking at the outside, but that show I think is great at putting it in perspective as well.
I haven't seen it. I gotta check it
Yeah,
out.
you got to check it out. It's pretty good.
No, I find myself like in that headspace more. It's like, you have to like care about the things that are very important to you on a personal level, but you also have to, like, as much as we can get caught up in the day-to-day of all this shit, especially on like an election year, like,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get caught up, right? But
And especially when somebody pushes your buttons, you know, like,
yeah,
it's not good to, I mean, shouldn't be throwing rocks at each other and shit, you know?
No.
And that's what it feels like, you know, these verbal blasts, and it's so easy to do now. You can tweet it, you can send a photo, you can do all these different things, and it's ready for the entire world to see. And then it just starts this feeding frenzy of just bullshit, you know? So I urge people to think before they do that, you know?
Same, yeah. No, it's like share a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Figure out what's in common, because it's like, dude, put on a spaceship and go riding for like a few months outside the Earth, and you'll really miss human contact, which is almost like COVID, right? Like COVID is to me like being on a spaceship in space. Like I haven't hugged my dad in almost a year. I haven't hugged my sister or my niece in almost a year. Like there's many of my friends I haven't hugged. Like I'm very blessed to have my dog and my love. So I do get, you know, some intimacy and affection, but that the big scale of things is like, does it not remind you of how important it is to have human touch and connection? Like right now we need to focus on that connection more than ever, not the divisiveness. Like kind of be sowed from plugging in too much, right? If you're always plugged into Twitter or you're always watching like the latest CNN headline, like you're definitely going to feel the divisiveness.
It's easier more now than ever to get caught up in that, right? Because you have time to pass. You have time where you're sitting around like, okay, I've worked out fucking 4 times today. What else am I going to do? I'm going to go on Instagram and see what everybody else is bitching about, or Twitter or whatever, right? So
yeah, dude, I've been on unemployment for the first time in my life. You know, I took unemployment with this whole thing. I got fired with COVID, with my day job, and my position never came back. So, you know, everything I've done for over a decade, you know, I'm working to fill the time now with other things, but like all I've ever done and known is not there, you know.
Sure.
So it's like you just have to adapt.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you got to start something new, like you have, and many other people have. You know, like these people that are creating music. My friends, you know, I have friends that are in super slumps. They won't do anything. Then I have friends that are the exact opposite, are like in a recording studio or dropping tracks or starting roadie relief, or you know, all these different things. There's a way to help, and there's a way to fill up your time, you know. So
yeah, I mean,
I urge people to just find something, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up getting like the one like small SBA loan, and so that's how I have new music coming out. So I've got like a new song coming out in a few days, and I've got my super awesome new single that, like I hate to say awesome about myself.
Yeah, let's start talking about that.
I love this song that's going to come out end of November, but you know, trying to take at least whatever help you can get and turn it into something, you know. So I'm someone who's like, all right, so I've got like this one loan, so I'm gonna take this and like turn it into hopefully something, but we'll see. But,
yeah. So getting into your music, what are your music influences? And how would you explain your genre of music?
So my musical influences, I really like came of age. Well, with music growing up, like my mom and dad played the favorites like Grateful Dead, Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, Paul Simon.
Fleetwood Mac is killing it right now with the cranberry juice gag.
Right? No, that's my mom and I's band, is Fleetwood. But yeah, all that stuff is what I was raised on. But when I fell in love with music was when, right around the time like Napster and LimeWire, right, like were becoming a thing, and I fell in love with like Matt Nathanson before he was like big, and like these early bands. Like I got really into Death Cab for Cutie and Copeland and Manchester Orchestra and Fall Out Boy before they were popular. Like I would go to Fall Out Boy shows with like 50 people back in the day, but I fell in love with this, like they called it emo music, right?
Yep.
At the time.
I was a big punker, so I was anti-emo.
I'm sure. Yeah, we were on other sides of that.
But then at the same time, there was part of me that, I'm going to admit this live on tape, but there was part of me that liked some of it. Like I
Taking
couldn't let
Back
go
Sunday.
of AFI. Yeah. Or Taking Back Sunday or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love like Say Anything, Taking Back Sunday,
Yeah.
Jimmy Eat World, Motion City Soundtrack. That's an old one I loved. But all this stuff where like
Something Corporate I really liked.
Yeah,
Do you
so
remember them?
I've got let's not forget you said that. Do I remember something corporate? I'll tell you a story about that in a second. But so I fell in love with all this like quote unquote emo music. But to me it was like this stuff where like the lyrics were so important because they told this story and it was the story of like identity and where you were. So like I as a listener back in the day was like just so caught up in any song I truly loved. It was because of this like imagery played out in the lyrics, and it's like I didn't learn to listen to music for the instrumentation until like 10 years later, and I'm already playing shows at this point and putting out records. Like I was such a lyric person. Like it's got to be about the lyric and the story, but the instrumentation has to kind of fit that emotion. Like I loved Explosions in the Sky, all these bands, but that's how I fell in love with music. It was like this kind of emo, coming of age, singer-songwriter music. And so what I identify myself as now is kind of this indie folk pop stuff. But I'm this weird hybrid of like emo rock bands and singer-songwriters, right? So I'm kind of this weird, to me, like emo singer-songwriter, right?
Sure.
Like the new song that will come out in a couple of months has like really big production, and has reminiscent tones of, to me, like Explosions in the Sky, but the lyrics are sensible, almost like Paper Kites or like a Copeland or Death Cab song. So it's this like balance of like telling a lyrical story to where you could like rip out the song a cappella and it would still cut you and like get to you, but then you add in the instrumentation and it supports this like cinematic kind of emotional swell. Like that's really where my music has lied. But you brought up something corporate. And something corporate is Andrew McMahon.
I don't even know.
No, I'll tell you. I
Yeah.
didn't either. Let me tell you. Well, good fucking point there.
Yeah.
You didn't know. So I didn't know either. So Something Corporate is a band in like the early 2000s. I knew who they were. Didn't really
Yeah,
care.
they like came in a flash in a pan.
Yeah,
I think
flash
I
in a
saw
pan.
them at a Warp Tour, and it was the only
Yeah.
emo band that was like, damn, these guys are fucking good.
And it's because the guy played piano. It was a
Yeah.
pressure. Right. So that
Yeah,
guy,
it's
right,
awesome.
that guy from Something Corporate then goes on to create Jack's Mannequin. Jack's Mannequin
Right.
is the lead singer of Something Corporate doing Jack's Mannequin. I went to Jack's Mannequin shows all through college. I fucking love that guy, right? Then fast forward after 2010, he goes by his own name, which I now know is Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, and he's like charted Billboard, done great things. I end up like I've met him because I was working for EG Live. I'm working at Fiddler's Green Amphitheater, and I'm like this runner who is assigned to Andrew McMahon for the day. So I end up like driving him around, having dinner with him, getting along well. Then I see him a few months later at the Fillmore Auditorium, where I'm seeing Dashboard Confessional and Third Eye Blind. But my friends like don't want to go up front, and I go up front. I end up like watching the show with Andrew from Something Corporate, Jack's Mannequin, and like all these dudes. And then I see them again at the show I work for them. Point is, I have a relationship with this guy. Then my band Edison is doing well, and we're invited to play Broncos Stadium to
Really?
open up for Andrew McMahon and the Wilderness. I'm saying this confidently, like I know it's McMahon. At the time, no one pronounced the name to me. I just read on the emails it's Andrew blah 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 in the Wilderness.
Not related to Ed McMahon, right?
No, he's not.
Okay.
but I know it's a guy from Jack's Mannequin, and I know it's a guy from Something Corporate, and I know that I've seen his shows, and I know a shit ton of his songs, and I'm stoked to play with him. So I go to the show, and I go on stage with my band, and I'm on stage, and it's like a sea of 3,000 people in front of me, and they just love what I'm doing. Like 2 songs in, we're crushing the set. And I, again, have not
How
heard...
good does that feel?
It feels fucking great.
Yeah.
But then I haven't heard the pronunciation of this guy's name, even though I have been a fan for over a decade. But what my dumbass does is I grab the microphone 2 songs in, and I'm like, let's give it up for Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. Because I did not realize it was McMahon at the time.
Yeah.
And this is like 2016. And I'm like, I called him Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness like 3 times on stage, to where I get off stage that night and I'm like hanging with Andrew backstage and we're friends. No one says anything to me from his camp, but I get on Twitter and like social media.
You're getting blasted, huh?
Blasted! There's like these super fans of Andrew McMahon. One of them, my favorite, says, if at Listen to Edison, which was our handle, if at Listen to Edison says Andrew McMahon's name wrong one more time, I'm going to kill myself. It's
Just
not how you say it.
Names are rough. I mean,
he was
honestly.
something corporate. Then he was Jack's Mannequin. You expect me to know a third title? That's
Right.
very selfish of you as an artist. Let me point that out to you, sir.
Our very first podcast, I called our guest his name is Jason. I got his last name right, no problem. Instead of Jason, I called him Justin. So it's all good.
I mean, what
happens,
are you,
yeah.
human?
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you?
Yeah. So what's going back to concerts and that sort of thing, and obviously if you have a love for music, you grew up going to concerts. What's the most amazing show that you went to that was like, God, this has influenced my stage presence, how I write music, what I want to do, where I want to be in my career?
Great question. Multiple shows. As far as being a lead singer and owning the stage and really commanding that presence, there's this band, Neon Trees. They had a couple of hit songs between 2010 and 2015, I think. The lead singer of that show, Neon Trees, God, he owned the stage. I saw him at the Bluebird Theater one night, and it was like we were all inside of his hand, and he just moved us like puppets. Like, the Neon Trees lead singer taught me, raised the bar of where I would like to be as far as capturing an audience as a lead singer. He really, really set the tone. As far as presentation and overall feel and vibe, Bon Iver at Red Rocks just really crushed me as far as like transitions between songs.
What a great venue to go to too, because I feel like artists step it up. And I know just from touring experience as a road guy, when we would come through Red Rocks, I would get excited mainly because it was my hometown. But then the artists always wanted to do something different or think outside the box, right? Rather than just another arena that you're walking into.
Always, no. They step it up there. And I feel like Bon Iver he brought this whole, you were immersed like in a musical, right? It was like a production. So like production value, it's like you're in a show. So Bon Iver at Red Rocks definitely did that for me.
Is this him right here?
That's Neon Trees, dude. Yeah. He's
Cool.
a crazy ass guy. He just jumps. You can see it. You see his live show photos.
I don't think I've ever seen them live. So.
Oh, I've never seen someone own a stage like that. Another guy that does it almost as well as him is the lead singer of Panic at the Disco. He'll do like a bunch of stuff as far as like interactive live singers. But as far as a show goes, Bon Iver really did a great job, for sure. And then I'm selfish because I love explosions in the sky, but they always like bring the feels to where like I want people in the audience to like feel that kind of like middle of the body, like I don't know what I'm feeling, but it's like this, I don't know, like chakra that I can't control. I feel like some of those instrumental bands really bring that out. So
sure,
trying to find a way as someone with lyrics to like bring that emotive stuff out in the instrumentation, like an Explosions in the Sky show does. Like for me, an ideal show would be like a mixture of my songs with like these beautiful transitions where one might be like the length of a song in itself, but it builds and it's beautiful, and it's like you take them on a journey with the instruments. Like if you combine all those three shows, it'd be like storytelling, great songs, and like epic transitions to where you went to like a real show from start to finish. Like that's kind of like my dream.
Yeah,
I guess
that's awesome. Yeah, no, and mine's kind of the same way, but just on the metal side of stuff. Like I need those concussion grenades. I need that.
Hell yeah.
I need that fire. I need that riffing guitar, and like I don't know. You just feel like maybe Satan's hanging out underneath the stage or whatever. You know what I mean?
Like am I in my body? Am I outside of my body?
Yeah, no, because
Whichever
it takes
way
you
is
outside
fine.
of it. It puts you on a whole new level to see that, and at the same time, if I went and saw Stevie Wonder, I'd be like blown away, So two totally different genres and styles of music or anything like that, and I kind of run the gamut when it comes to all of that, but I think that's one major connection that we're missing right now is that live aspect and being able to go to a show and just having that buzzer, the natural buzzer high. And I know it's normally elevated by alcohol and maybe some other recreational stuff, but for the most part, I mean, you can get that feeling without having any other primers involved, right? And just going to a show. I mean, even as a road guy, when I was working, and one of my favorite tours that I did, and I'm not really into rap music all that much, was Lil Wayne, and it was kind of the height of the Carter album. So it was Carter 3 or 4 or whatever we were touring on, and it's when he decided to be a rock star. So we started the shows with concussion grenades, and the crew was cool, and he was cool, and we just had a great time.
Is that like back when he would keep like $200K cash in his bathroom on his tour bus?
Yeah, you know,
because that guy was
he was
crazy
a
with
real professional when it came to like how to. You know, I've worked for a lot of different artists, but he was honestly a real professional. Like, the tour bus would roll in, he'd get off the tour bus, walk on the stage, do the show, get back on the tour bus, and leave.
Yep.
His entourage would be there partying or whatever, but he was just kind of, that's what he did, and he was on time most of the time. So.
Yeah, I worked for him at Red Rocks for like some type of festival thing he was on, and he was one of the only.
And he was
people
nice to
on-
everybody.
Yeah, he was one of the only people on time. But I remember, like, the story went that he, like, just didn't trust investing everything, so he kept, like, a shit ton of cash in his, like, bathroom or something on the bus. He's like, yeah, if you don't have, like, $250,000 cash, you ain't doing it right.
Yeah, no, I think that
yeah,
was
that's what I do
key.
in case I need a late night in and out, you know, like, for the crew.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize, I mean, there's tour accountants and stuff that travel with all those bands, and they carry literally thousands and thousands of dollars worth of cash.
I mean, people don't realize that. I would go and burn, like, I'm not shitting you, like $3,000 at the grocery store just to stock the dressing room. And at the end of the night, like, they'd leave a bunch of shit behind. So, like, back in the day when I was doing, like, 80 hours a week of that, I'm like, yeah, Ellie Goulding's, like, watching her weight. So she didn't want any of this shit. So I just brought home, like, $500 worth of Whole Foods.
Exactly, yeah. No, that was the first stop at the end of the show was... As soon as the artist left their dressing room, you went shopping, right?
Yeah.
Bottles of booze, whatever, whatever was left over. So, but yeah, good stuff. So, what do you got coming up with your music career right now? And what's you mentioned you had a single coming out, or is it an entire album?
Yeah, so I have 2 singles coming out. So the first one is actually available October 16th on all platforms, which probably is out now. So it's called Time to Go, and there's a place in Boulder called Stone Cottage. It's like a studio that does recording sessions, but they also do like live performances where they come in, you're on these great mics, and they capture you with like really nice cameras, and they do a little session, almost like an audio tree or like a day trotter. So we did this song that I hadn't put out, but I wrote on my last tour with my band, Edison.
Is that it right there?
Stone Cottage Studios. One of those kind of look like that, maybe? Stone Cottage Studios, Boulder. Yeah, that's it. That's
awesome.
Yeah, so I went to Stone Cottage. And
I've seen some of your stuff, too, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
They do a good job there.
So, yeah, so we went and filmed a few songs there, and this song was unreleased. I'd written it on the last tour that Edison did with the original lineup. And I knew that, like, the band wasn't going to be going on as it had been for, like, 4 years. And we'd given up pretty much all of our lives to do what we were doing. So I wrote the song called Time to Go. That was a bit of a goodbye to the band. And we're going to put it out, the live version from Stone Cottage, so it won't be studio perfect. But we're putting that out. And then I have a song, as my first time to talk about it. It's called Get Up. And Get Up is going to be coming out at the end of November, and it is my first song that I've recorded since the band that really reflects where I'm at as an artist, and also has been recorded at a nice studio. It was recorded at the Blasting Room, which is a studio.
What a great place, huh?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Rise Against records have been made there.
Big Rise Against fan.
Big Rise Against records have been made there. Flowbots, a bunch of ton of huge bands. Something
the
corporate.
Fray recorded
the
there?
Fray, something corporate. Yeah, so it's a really big studio. But this song deserved a really good recording, and they got the best I could imagine. We recently heard the latest mix, and I'm so amped. I've never been this proud of a song. I've never felt like something encompasses like how my heart feels as a musician as this song. So I'm super stoked to put that out, and we're going to start promoting that soon. But yeah, first time to hear about
And
it
where
right
can
now.
people watch for that? I know you're all over social media and stuff, and we're gonna have you drop this at the end again. But yeah, tell people right now where they can find you and your music.
Well, I'm selfish. I'm Sarah with an H, so I kept the H. So it's sarahslaton.com, and you can hear everything there. And there'll be a link to all of my sites. I'm on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Tidal, all of the streaming platforms. I'm on there. I'm also on Bandcamp, sarahslaton.bandcamp.com. But I am going to be putting out that single on all platforms and shooting a video for it soon. So really excited. And yeah, I wrote it during COVID, so it's like a song that's like, I don't feel like myself. I feel like the world's upside down, but I have to get up. I have to figure out what I'm going to do because I can't just wait for someone to help me here. But it's like I'm in limbo. I'm lost, but I'm going to get up. It's kind of the whole thing, right? It's like we're kind of fucked.
Moving forward, yeah.
We're fucked, but we're gonna move forward. It's like the whole thing. So I'm really excited for that. And the Matt Fink plays drums on it. Blasting Room, slays production. The song is pretty epic, so I'm really stoked for that.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to hear it, and I urge anybody that's listening to go check it out as well. So
maybe I'll give you like a little preview of it.
that'd be awesome.
That'd be nice. We'll do that.
Yeah, and we got to figure out a way to. Jeremy, how can we release that? Do you want to do you have a preview of it that we can play right now, or?
I mean,
Or is it too not far along
I've got
enough?
like 30 seconds on my phone. You can hear
Okay.
if you want to play a little bit of it.
Sure.
That to us so that it can get dropped in.
Yeah.
Deal.
Can you airdrop it to Jeremy, maybe?
Yep.
Or? Okay, cool. Sarah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on. We're excited to hear your new singles that are coming out, and we will definitely drop it at the end of this podcast for all of our listeners. And keep in touch with us. Let us know what's happening. Let us know what's happening with you, and if you got any more showcases or any great ideas coming up, please let us know, and we'll spread the word.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Know that you're starting to see you're stronger than you may seem. What are you gonna do? Get up now. Get up. Get up now. Get up. Get up now. Get up. Get up now. What are you gonna do?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much, anyone that listens to the music. I appreciate you. And no matter what, just make sure if you do anything, visit saveourstages.com because we need to support the venues that bring us the music that we learn to fall in love with.
Awesome.
This weekend.
Yeah, this weekend.
They're doing a
Perfect.
big festival this weekend, including the Miley Cyrus and the Lumineers. So
Foo Fighters Roots.
saveourstages.com.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right, awesome. One more time before we let you go, just let people know where they can find you, your website, Instagram, Twitter, all that sort of stuff.
For sure. Yeah, so you can find me at sarahslaton.com. You can also find me at Instagram and Twitter. I am Sarah Slaton. If you're on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/Sarah Slaton Music. Thank you guys so much. I hope I see you soon.
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.